Everybody, welcome to the Happy Dog. My name's Sean. I'm one of the owners here. Thank you for coming out tonight. We are privileged that we've been able to do this series with the City Club. This is into our 10th year. We look back, we started this partnership in this series back in November of 2013. So we're very grateful for that. A few housekeeping things while you're here. Bathrooms are there in the back. Our folks will take great care of you. Adam, Jamie, and Cassie behind the bar. Frank's running sound. Take care of them. They take care of you. And with that, I want to bring Cynthia from the City Club up. Let's welcome Cynthia.
Hi, everyone. Cynthia Connolly, Director of Programming at the City Club of Cleveland. And please, a round of applause to everybody for coming out tonight for this very important conference. I don't want to steal any of Chris's thunder, but really quickly, this is a continuing conversation from one that we started back in March when we invited Andrea Elliott, author of the book Invisible Child, as part of the One Community Read series in partnership with the regional public library systems, Playhouse Square, among others, and to talk about particularly youth and family homelessness. And so as a challenge to that program that we hosted in March, every participating organization was to host their own conversation, on their own and their own time. And so this is our conversation for the City Club, for our community, for you. So thank you, everyone, and to our panelists for being here today. So we need to clap for that. I also want to thank our sponsor, Bank of America, too, for allowing us to have these in the community forums. They, without that support, it would be really tough to bring these out to you. So thank you to them. And I also want to take this opportunity to highlight two forums that we have coming up that I think will be of particular interest to this crowd. On Tuesday, we'll be welcoming author Patterson Joseph, who was actually slated to be the 11th Doctor Who. He was the runner-up. He didn't quite make it. But he's one of those actors that, like, if you see him in a TV show or movie, you're like, where have I seen that guy? You end up Googling him. He wrote a book, and he will be with us on Tuesday. It's called The Secret Diaries of Charles Ignatius Sancho, which chronicles the life of the first Black man to receive the vote in late 18th century England. It's giving Hamilton, in my opinion. So it's a really cool book. It's also kicking off our relaunching since the start of the pandemic, our City Club Book Club. So if you guys are into reading, you love book clubs, please join us on Tuesday to hear from the author himself, and we'll have our book club meeting likely in June or early July to talk about the book after we've had a chance to read it. The second thing that I really want to tell you about, and if you checked your email this morning and you're a City Club member, you would have known and you would have seen, we are welcoming Chasten Buttigieg to the City Club on Friday, June 9th. You may recognize that last name. It's the husband of the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg. And he has a memoir out, a young adult adaptation of his memoir, I Have Something to Tell You, which chronicles his life journey growing up gay in the Midwest. And so this is part of Pride Month for the City Club, and we hope you all will join us on Friday, June 9th for that. And with that said, I don't want to take any more of Chris's time, and let's get rolling into the forum. Thank you so much.
Hello and welcome to the City Club of Cleveland, where we are devoted to conversations of consequence that help democracy thrive. It's Wednesday, May 3rd, and I'm Chris Nestrick. My pronouns are he, him, and I am the Executive Director of the Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless. We are at the Happy Dog in Gordon Square for the City Club's monthly Takes On series, and today we're going to be talking about youth and family homelessness. In March, the City Club welcomed author Andrea Elliott to discuss her book Invisible Child. It was part of a One Community Reads, which is a collaboration effort of the City Club of Cleveland, Playhouse Square, and Cuyahoga County's 9 public library systems to create a shared reading experience for the greater Cleveland community. In Andrea Elliott's book, we meet Dasani, a child in New York City, and her family who moves from shelter to shelter, battling persistent poverty and hunger, and in search for stability and a way forward. It was heavy and harrowing reminder of the struggles children and their families face and the work that needs to be done. In Cuyahoga County, 5,000 residents experience homeless each year. Youth comprise 8% and families 12%. Homelessness disproportionately affects Black people, LGBTQ plus people, and individuals with disabilities. And in March, Cuyahoga County announced a pledge to reduce homelessness by 25% by 2027. Today, we continue this conversation on youth and family homelessness in Cleveland. And so I want to welcome, joining me on stage is Carrie Gibbons, she, they, Queer Youth Outreach and Engagement Manager at the Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless. Welcome, Carrie. David Merriman, he, him, Director at the Cuyahoga County Department of Health and Human Services. Thank you for being here, David. Courtney Morgan, they, them, member of the Reach Youth Action Board. Thank you, Courtney. And Christy Socio, she, her, Assistant Director at A Place for Me at the YWCA of Greater Cleveland. Now, if you have any questions for our panelists, you can text them at 330-541-5794. You can also tweet them at the City Club, and Cynthia with the City Club staff will try to work them in the second half of the program. Members and friends of the City Club, please join me in welcoming our panelists here at the Happy Dog. So I want to start this conversation by getting the lay of the land, something often we refer to Cleveland, the big picture of youth and family homelessness in Cleveland and Cuyahoga County. I think there's no one more appropriate to do that than Christy. And because I know much of your work involves looking at system changes, equity, and the impact of homelessness on individuals and in our community. For example, on May 1st, there were 31 families experiencing homelessness, 8 of which were newly homeless in our community on that day. So I ask you, I'm wondering, what is your work telling you about youth and family homelessness in our community? Who is experiencing this crisis? And what are the trends you're seeing?
All right, thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. Again, my name's Christy Socio, she, her pronouns. I'm with A Place for Me. We're an organization that works to prevent and end youth and young adult homelessness in Cuyahoga County. And like Chris said, just for really quick context, we do our work in 3 ways: through direct work with young people, through systems change, and through authentic youth partnership, which is really the most important and central part of our work. We know that young people and anyone who has lived experience, those folks are the experts, and it's up to us to work with them to make a change. And so what we're seeing, kind of the lay of the land, as Chris said, every year, over 500 young adults experience homelessness. That is a big number, but it's a manageable number. We're not seeing hundreds of thousands the way some communities are. And so we really truly believe that working together, we can end homelessness and have housing for all folks in Cleveland and Cuyahoga County. Of the 553 young people we served in 2022, over 40% had some kind of disability. 30% were parents, so young adults who also have children of their own. 9% were pregnant, expecting a baby on the way. 43% had foster care experience, with 28% having aged out of foster care. And one thing that's different for young adults and the general population is it skews much more female. 67% of young people experiencing homelessness were female, 30% male, and 3% trans or non-binary young people. And of course, something that we can't talk about homelessness without talking about, like Chris said, is equity and racial equity. Over almost 80% of the young people we served were Black, which is a huge disparity to our county's overall population and a huge disparity from those who experience poverty in Cuyahoga County. So we know that to address homelessness, we can't just look at housing. We have to look at the systemic factors. We have to look at racism. We have to look at how everything comes together. and how the systems can be less like systems and treat those experiencing homelessness like people, get to know them, meet their needs, help them reach their goals, and do it in a sustainable, ongoing way. Because the other thing we see a lot is young people who are experiencing homelessness now as young adults who also experienced it as a child. And that's a cycle that we can and need to break.
Thank you. I appreciate the comment about systems. David, I know you work as the director of Cuyahoga County Department of Health and Human Services. I would imagine like you work with multiple systems in your work, in your daily work. And I think something that this book shows us clearly is that homelessness is a complex interplay of different systems, right? Whether it's housing crisis, criminal legal system, employment, job and family services, behavioral health, and obviously others. The book showed us how often these systems failed or succeeded the youth and families in crisis. I'm thinking locally, we've heard the news most recently about youth staying at DCFS overnight on Euclid Avenue. And so I'm interested in hearing your kind of like experience working with, these systems that interchange in our community, and maybe talk about a little bit like how DCFS responded in that way to people staying there.
Thanks, Chris. Before I respond, I do want to acknowledge Bliss and Cynthia for setting up this event beforehand. Great work today, and thank you very much for including us today. As I consider this issue and I hear the statistics that are presented by Christy, I'm left with questioning, is this a story about numbers? Is this about the number of children that are in our building or in our street? Or is this a story about human beings? And what I would say about the children that are in our building, whether they're there for an hour, a day, a week, a month, or longer, every one of them lives with dignity. And our challenge is to find the resources that will meet their needs. There are children that need to be in Jane and Hunter every day. Maybe they're coming back from a therapeutic service. Maybe they're going between foster homes. Maybe they're being dropped off by law enforcement at 2 o'clock in the morning when their home has been raised. And so kids will be in our building, unfortunately, because the problems that are driving them there are problems that are in our communities. And until we address those problems, we will have our children. These are not those children. These are our children in our building. And what we have to do is we have to find solutions that meet what you exactly described, Chris, their complex needs. We have developed over years services that really consider their LGBTQ plus identity. I think that we have to acknowledge this is a major population within the youth that we're serving. We are increasingly seeing children that are multi-systems. They are a combination of mentally ill. They have mental health problems. They have developmental disabilities. They're involved in the juvenile justice system all at the same time. And all too frequently, as they're recognized to be incompetent to stand trial for any criminal offenses they serve, they've been rejected by the service providers they have a difficult job to place these children. So, Chris, when you think about the interconnectedness of our services, and you think about the great book that Andrea Elliott brought to our community, I agree with you. This is a story about how the systems come together. And it is unfortunately right now a story more about improvement than success.
Yeah.
And I think as we move forward, our only way forward is as a community and working together to address complex systems by bringing complex systems to the focus. And that focus has to be those children, our children.
Thanks, David. So Courtney, you come here tonight with the deepest knowledge about the experience of homelessness. You work with young adults every day as their peer. There's a popular narrative around people experiencing homelessness, and then there's kind of like the blood and bone reality of what it's like. And I want to ask you, what is that reality that you see or have experienced, and what is that like for the people you're serving?
Well, my name is Courtney Morgan. My pronouns are they and them. I want to say thank you for everybody that came. I work with my peers like on a day-to-day basis, from my reach board to OECP to even working like in person with them, like meeting up with them if they say like they need me or something like that. I'll go anywhere, everywhere just to meet them, just to give them like resources and stuff because I know how it is. Because I was once in foster care and I didn't have the best experience, but I did meet a lot of people along the way, and some of the people I did meet are here in this room today, so I'm really happy. But yeah, the main thing I feel like for youth, not just foster youth, but youth overall, I feel like we don't get heard a lot. Like people listen, but they pick and choose what they hear from us. Like they just hear like, oh, it's just a kid that's being bad that got taken from home, or they just wasn't listening to their mom, that's why they're in their predicament, or like a lot of people look at like the young women that get pregnant, like at a not so reasonable age. They're like, oh, they're fast, so this is what you get. Like now you're pregnant, now you don't have no resources, now you don't have no help. Maybe you don't have like your mom and dad in your life no more because you wanted to, go down that route. But people don't really listen to the stories because sometimes the story is not what you think it is. Some like women get touched or raped, or some women be in sticky situations where they end up pregnant, or even the males. Like I hear a lot of males get touched and they don't even want to talk about it because it's just like, I'm a man, I'm supposed to take care of the house, I'm supposed to take care of my mom. Why would I want to, even express how I feel if I grew up in a household where feelings did not exist? Somebody telling you, hi, how are you? Like, how are you feeling today? Did you eat? How is school? Do you need any hygiene items? Just little stuff like that people take for granted. I think one thing I've learned being in care and out of care is that all the young people want is somebody to love them unconditionally. And when I say that, I know people think of like relationships and all that, but I'm talking about like unconditionally is like, I'm not related to you whatsoever. We might not look alike. We might not like the same things. We might not like the same food. We didn't come from the same background. We might not even like, maybe I'm from a certain state and you're from here, but loving unconditionally, I feel like no matter what I'm bringing to the table, you don't judge me. Like if I'm telling you like I'm depressed 24/7 or I'm suicidal, you don't look at me as, oh, when I talk to this person, this is where the conversation will go. Like anytime I come to you, you're trying to uplift me and tell me I'm beautiful and I'm pretty and I'm smart and I'm intelligent and I can be whatever I want to be with the help of people that I surround myself around, because I feel like a lot of youth don't get that support that they need. Like even though they're in care, even though they're surrounded by social workers, guardian ad litem, their county worker, even the judge, sometimes it takes a village to make somebody. And I feel like a lot of people don't get that. Like a lot of people be like, that's your problem. Like that's your kid, that's your case, so you get paid for that. But I feel like the people that get overlooked and not looked at all is the people that don't get paid for them. Like honestly, if I can like just, I don't know, like thank the people that didn't get paid, that helped me like mentally, financially, like physically, I would give them like my all. Like I made it here because of them. The people that are not really foster parents, the people that are not county workers, the people that are not county lights, because I feel like they listen more than the people that was getting paid to be in my face every day.
Courtney, I think you hit on this a little bit, but I kind of want to follow up because I think it's really important. Is like based on this and your experience and like what you've said, like what does genuine community care and support look like for young people experiencing homelessness in our community?
Just awareness. I know when I was homeless, I didn't tell anybody. I felt like it took people till I graduated kind of to know that I was homeless. And a lot of people were like upset and mad because they were like, why didn't you tell me? I could have helped you and stuff like that. My thing is like, I'm not going to tell you my struggle if you can't even notice that I'm crying, or you can't even notice that I'm not eating, when you don't notice that my hair's not done, I don't have clothes on, or I'm wearing the same clothes for a month. If that didn't concern you, why the heck would I tell you anything? So I feel like it just takes people paying attention, like honestly just looking at somebody. Like you can tell a lot just from sitting back and observing somebody. It's not that hard. We pick up our phone and look at everybody on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and all this, and I feel like the people right in front of us don't even get that type of knowledge. They get, they're stinky, oh, their hair's not done, oh, they have holes in their clothes, oh, this, that, and the third. But I feel like people on social media that we don't even know get more attention and love than the people in our community.
So real. So, Carrie, I mean, I guess part of your job is to see people, right? To meet people and see them. I think I'm often struck by this statistic that I don't think we oftentimes hear enough, is that nationally around 30% of young people experiencing homelessness identify as LGBTQ plus. And your work is specifically dedicated to working with folks that identify this way. Do you, like in your experience, do you think this kind of tracks in our community? Are you seeing, are the people you're working with, young adults, coming out to you and identifying this way? And can you talk a little bit about like what's happening there?
So, hello, my name's Carrie Gibbons. My pronouns are she, they, and I am the Queer Outreach and Engagement Manager for NEOC. What I see pretty consistently is that by the time someone ends up giving me a call or being referred to me, they've already been informed that I'm a soft landing, which means they can immediately show up as themselves, right? And a lot of the times in our systems, we're being asked questions in such a way that there's no wholeheartedness or person-centered questioning. So when someone does come to me, 2 Fridays ago, I got a referral from Estabrook, the recreation center. By the way, I'm very impressed with just how their social services systems is working, and I'm not usually one to say that, so David, did you hear that? But in general, like, I'll sit down with a client and they're queer in my title, and let's be honest, like a lot of the young folks are pretty woke, and they're like, you are a safe spot, right? And so this young person who just turned 18 2 weeks prior, mom kicked her out, had a very hard life. She is working part-time and doing what she can. She's trying to become a lifeguard. And immediately within just a couple minutes, very shy person too, like off rip, and I love shy people because I'm extroverted. And so she came out to me as bisexual. And in that moment, the 2 workers were like, say what? And it's like, I know the bee's invisible, but we're going to give it light here. But the thing is that in my work, I see the person for who they are and where they are, right? And I have clothes in my car so that folks who need them can change them, right? And I happen to carry wigs in my car as well so that a trans client can feel beautiful in that moment. And I do. I mean, but this is 3 years into it, right? And because even though someone's going through the hardest thing that they're probably going to go through, it doesn't mean they need to feel like dog shit going through it. Sorry, I just swore.
I don't know. I'm sure
Yes,
I
girl.
don't know if you've sworn at the city club before. You might be one of the few.
Maybe it was Obama.
So David, coming back to you, I want to recognize that in March, Cuyahoga County released its first ever kind of strategic plan to address homelessness. In my mind, a pretty impressive document. And I think one of the things I think it raises is like, while we've not seen significant decreases in homelessness in our community over the years, the plan does have an ambitious and aspirational goal to reduce homelessness by 25% by 2027, I believe. So I want you to talk a little bit about that, but I think I would like you to focus on what do you believe needs to happen to achieve this goal? This isn't, I appreciate it for its ambitiousness, but it's no easy task given what we've just heard here today.
Chris, thanks for recognizing it. I feel almost a little bit unprepared to answer this question because most of the folks that are on this dais with me were more involved with writing the plan than I was, including you and your team. So it's an important question, and I have a copy of the summary of it. It's an outstanding document. What resonates with me is not that it's a strategic action plan for homelessness, but it's about housing through equity. And I think we have to stop and recognize that to address homelessness, we need housing. And I think we need what it calls for is navigation. It calls for the creation of housing. It calls for focusing on a term that I actually feel a little bit uncomfortable with, subpopulations. I understand it's a technical term. I'm a government employee and we all talk in jargon, so excuse me for that. But to talk about a subpopulation, that's a person. When we're talking about the LGBTQ community, we're talking about seniors, we're talking about youth. I'm sorry, these aren't subpopulations, these are neighbors. And in so many ways, I just need to recognize we need to humanize these problems. We need to call out and say, these are in every one of our communities. Every community is going to be affected by this issue in one way or another. And the job of the county, the job of my boss, Chris Ronayne, is to get folks that are concerned about this issue on the corner of 58th and Detroit, as well as those that are up maybe across from this or that, high-priced shopping plaza, or in this or that gated community. So it really is a call to action for all of us. This is not a strategic plan. This is a strategic action plan. And I think for us to mobilize to respond to this, we're going to have to make some very difficult decisions. There's some tough decisions ahead of us. This is right now the year where our providers are struggling to keep their doors open because our rates have not changed and have not kept up with inflation. This is the known issue, but we have some tough decisions in front of us. Are we going to choose to fund this or that? Are we going to choose to continue with programs that may or may not be working, but they're popular? Or are we going to prioritize and we're going to say, these are the things that we hold dear, we are committed to as valuable, and we're going to address. And I think Melissa Sirak and the Office of Homeless Services is absolutely the right team to lead us in that response, because they can't do it alone. They can't do it without on this dais, but also out in this room and watching us online. They can't do it alone. We can do it together. So I think it's a community effort, and we just have to think about how we serve populations. I even feel comfortable with that. How we serve our neighbors that really share in our community and maybe are diverse from us, but are no less valuable.
Thank you. I would just add, the Office of Homeless Services, created an action plan for this work to happen. It is an impressive document. I want to come back to this idea of community work. Courtney, you're involved in community work. And most recently, you're involved in the creation of a drop-in center, not too far from where we are now. I want to recognize that there is a small group of community members that have been actively opposing it. Can you talk to us briefly about the importance of having such a resource in our community? And how might that impact the youth that you work with if that resource came to reality?
So the drop-in center is something very dearly to me and other youth. It's a need that meets everything. It's gonna be filing for food stamps, or helping if you have a kid, if you need kid resources, if you need help with a voucher for daycare or something like that, or if your kid have to need something medically or whatever that, we're gonna have staff on board for that. We're gonna have a clothes closet, hygiene closet. We're gonna have specialists, a therapist and a counselor, because I know a lot of the youth know about that, but sometimes they don't even know how to sign up or where to start, or like some of them just kind of want to like, let me try it out because, you know, you hear a lot of stuff, but it's like, you got to try it out to see if you really like it. Another thing is that we're going to have, workers there too, like from all walks of life. So like we're gonna have like county workers and stuff like that too. So say if like you're aging out and you're eligible for like bridges and other stuff, if you're going into college, there's this thing called college bound and EBT that actually gives you money just for like being in classes, showing up for school and stuff like that. So if you need like extra money that goes towards your schooling, or even if it pays for like school supplies or outside of school things, you can use that. So just resources that like you wouldn't know of, or maybe you never heard of, or resources that you might not know that be eligible for you, because everybody's situation is different. I might come in and be like, hey, I need help with like dental, and somebody else might be like, I need help with the whole 9 yards, and then somebody else come in and be like, I only need help with food because I haven't ate. So it just depends on like how the youth come in and what they need. And the biggest thing about the drop-in center that's gonna be different from any other drop-in center is our hospitality. Like that's the main thing I keep bringing up to everybody. Like I graduated from Tri-C and the hospitality range, so my biggest thing is like open arms welcoming. Nobody wants to walk in the door and be like, okay, what do you need? What's everything? Blah, blah, blah. Here's all everything. Here's the paper. Here's the numbers. Talk to these people. Nobody wants that. Like I will walk out and be like, yeah, y'all are crazy. So my biggest thing is like when they come in, like greet them. Hey, have you ate? Are you hungry? Here's the kitchen. Here's something to eat. Are you cold? Do you need a jacket, a cover? Like what do you need right now that's gonna make you feel the most comfortable? So if they're coming in and like they're saying like I haven't ate all day, we'll have something for them. If they're saying like if they're a young lady, they're on that cycle, hey, I'm cramping really bad, we can help them with that. Like I just want to meet you where you're at right now so we can help you get to where you're going. I don't want somebody like overwhelming the youth and stuff like that, because I know how that feels when I finally got to that point of getting help. I just felt like everything was really shoved in my face, and it's just like, okay, where do I start? So instead of like just doing that to anybody else, the biggest thing is just like open arms, welcoming, and just meeting them where they're at and take baby steps, honestly. So if it takes a year for them to get where they're going, that is fine. We're not going to judge you at all. If it takes shorter than that, then that's fine, but we're going at their pace. They are human, they can talk, they can walk. I just believe in going at their own pace. Like even if it's a hookup in the road, say we're helping somebody, we don't see them for a while, and then they come back and want to continue on with their plan, that is going to be okay. I know a lot of people be like, oh, I haven't talked to the youth in a month, I don't know what's on their phone, we're just gonna drop their case. That's like anywhere, honestly. We don't want to be like that. We want to be like, we're going to give them time to come back to us, because they're going to find their way back to us. Like they've seen how we were, they've seen what we can do, they'll come back. You just have to have hope. And when they do come back, check in with their mental. If you know something's off that you didn't see before, ask before just diving in right back into the play, because now it might be new barriers than the barriers that you are already working with. So just taking your time and actually getting to know somebody is the biggest thing that our drop-in center is going to provide for the young youth.
Thank you. Just kind of quickly before we move to kind of questions and answers, I'm hearing a lot of what you're saying the youth providing is a lot of the work maybe Carrie you're doing on the streets, like outside of your car. And I think in so many ways COVID has laid bare the extent of the mental health crisis in our community, particularly with young adults and families. So my question to you is like, what, in relation to the youth drop-in center or any other services, like, what do you think is happening with the folks you are working with? Like, what could we be doing better? And like, what are you seeing on the street with the folks you're working with? And then like pretty quickly, yeah.
I think that it'll be a blessing once the drop-in centers open, because it gives the opportunity, like for me, it's point A, point B, point C, point D with my client, and all of these entities, right, like aren't necessarily talking to one another. And so one place might be person first for this client, but the other place, they're just a number and they're at day 31 and they have to close them. So I think that right now, creating more liaisons between our systems, and like really opening the approach of a more of a non-binary system, I think would really allow for everyone to serve in a manner that is not so segregated.
Thank you. We're about to begin our audience Q&A. For our live stream audience, I'm Chris Nestrick, the Executive Director of the Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless and moderator for tonight's conversation. Joining us for our panel conversation on youth and family homelessness is Carrie Gibbons, she, them, Queer Youth Outreach and Engagement Manager at NEOC. David Merriman, he, him, Director of the Cuyahoga County Department of Health and Human Services. Was I supposed to ring the bell again? No. Courtney Morgan, they, them, member of the Reach Youth Action Board, and Christy Socio, Assistant Director of A Place for Me at the YWC of Greater Cleveland. If you are here with us in person, you can line up next to the microphone to my left and ask your question. If you're joining us virtually or are perhaps a little microphone shy, you can text them at 330-541-5794. That's 330-541-5794. You can also tweet them at the City Club, and Cynthia with the City Club will try to work to get them in.
Hello, my name is Moses, and I went from working with the homeless youth population to working with the adult population. So how do we bridge that gap? I remember you were talking about transition. So how can we collaborate to bridge that gap and to make that collaboration happen for someone who's been displaced and making that transition? And that's for all of you guys.
Hi. So thank you for your question. I think what I find to be the most interesting thing is that statistically we see that someone as a child who's experiencing homelessness will then experience it as a young adult. And then what I'm also seeing is that someone as a young adult is also experiencing homelessness as an adult, right? And so I think where we are very much a community who wants to get people housed, and housing is a human right. But also,
how do we get to housing? Employment, right? Soft skills.
I think soft skills. I also think that providing an opportunity for people to unpack their trauma is a really good start to understanding where they are. Because if you're walking with your trauma and it keeps blowing up in your face, like there's just going to be consequences to that on your own person, right? But I do believe that in creating environments where people feel that they can unpack what has happened to them, that will give them an opportunity to then get involved in employment, get involved in volunteering or whatever passions they have, right?
So for youth that are making that transition, what do you guys do? Like what is in place for youth that are making that transition? Because from my understanding, and as a Black man in America, period, the only thing that's going to get us somewhere is employment and education.
Great question. I can chime in. So one of the things I just want to acknowledge to your question is the separation is really arbitrary. Like someone in the federal government one day decided when you're 18 you're an adult, and then a few years later was like, okay, yeah, and then when you're 24 you're like really an adult, which is completely arbitrary. Like who in this room at 24 was fully formed, or at 18 was fully formed, or now in this day is fully formed? And we know young people's brains especially are still developing. For young people who've experienced trauma into your 30s, your brain is still developing, and it's really normal to try things out, to make mistakes. But what's not normal is to not have a safety net and have to experience homelessness because of that, or because of where you come from, or because of what your family support is able to provide or not able to provide.
Okay, so from the research that I completed.
You want to
But
go ahead.
okay, as a single black man with no kids, let's say I'm making a transition from youth to adulthood, as opposed to a woman who was making that transition, or as no matter if she has kids or not. There are resources for women and single parents, but there aren't that many resources for like a single dad or dad that has kids that is making that transition. So that's our problem, and that's what we need to focus on moving forward.
Thank you, and that's real.
Thank you.
Thank you. I live on West 38th Street on the near west side. I've known David Merriman literally since he was born. He was raised on the near west side before it became Ohio City, and is raising his kids there now. I can judge from the choices that the other panelists have made, their attitudes, their background, their experience, their interests. In our neighborhood, as was mentioned earlier, there is opposition to the youth drop-in center in the old Lutheran Children's Aid building. The opponents say, oh, they support these kinds of services. They just don't want to have it in a residential neighborhood next door because and then they quote all kinds of potential dangers, that there's enough stress with homeless people on the near west side and they don't want to add to it. Can you speak to answering those things? I mean, I realize that this is very difficult because they've actually filed a lawsuit to try to block it. But can you speak to answering those kinds of concerns?
I mean, I'll start, but then, I know others want to respond. First, thank you for your kind words and affirmation. And I would actually acknowledge all those in this room that have supported me and helped me get to this point. And I think there's a lot of folks in this room that can share in that. I think we have to, at some point, recognize we're not always going to all agree. There will be times that we will disagree, and it's just a question of whether or not we'll disagree with civility and whether we'll see dignity in the other person. I think all too frequently, we demonize, we belittle, and we dismiss other points of view as being just inherently invalid. And I don't think that's necessary. There is a process in our country to work out disagreements, and this is going through it. I will also tell you that on the day that this item was coming to the Board of Control, Chris Ronayne was on the phone jockeying for votes, making sure there was enough people that were going to support it to keep it moving forward and to not stop. And I think, thank you. And I think at the end of the day, it's our obligation to just keep moving the ball forward. There will be times that we will be stopped or we will be slowed. It does not have to end. It just takes more movement. It takes more pressure. And I think ultimately this project will be successful for everyone in this community because at the end of the day, it will lift up the dignity of individuals. I do have one other just quick correction. I think earlier Carrie recognized a great program at Esterbrook, and listen, we'll take every bit of credit we can get in Health and Human Services, but that's a program my good friend Mayor Justin Bibb in the city of Cleveland. And I point that out because a lot of folks think of human services as the county service. It's actually not just the county. It's a community service. It's shared by the city, it's shared by the state and many municipalities. And I think that's togetherness that we need. And I think in that spirit, you're going to see that this youth drop-in center is going to succeed as well.
I want to put into, you may have heard of some legal setbacks at the moment, but we have faith in our team and the youth and everybody that's been going through this with us. I do think all the support we've been getting, all the people that we talk to, even the people that don't support this, I feel like once this comes about and once we get up and running, I feel like, and they see the work that we're doing and stuff like that, they would definitely change their minds. They'll definitely like, you know what, that is somebody maybe I would want to work with, maybe that is like a community that I do want to work with, because the main thing we want to show people is like, yeah, we might have setbacks, yeah, people might not like us, but we're going to stand tall until it's nothing left that we can do, like, at all. And one thing I want to put out there is like, me as being a youth and the youth I work with and my peers and stuff like that, we don't give up easily.
And I'll just add really quickly, because I know there's other questions, but just to your question about those concerns cited about young people, the young people we work with are the most incredible, smart, amazing, talented young people you will ever meet. They've not had the same opportunities to the first question of they might not have had the same supports to get education or a career path yet, but they have goals and they are working on it, and they are actually more likely to be victims of crimes than to be perpetuating them than their peers. So what they're looking for is a safe place, to what Courtney and Carrie talked about earlier, where they can come as their whole selves, get the space to process the trauma they're going through and achieve those goals. They are on their way to do great things if we just give them the opportunity to.
And I'm one of those youth, so we believe in that one right now.
Thanks for coming out tonight. This is probably for David, but if you other three panelists have anything to add. The Biden administration formed the interagency for the homeless and set a goal, pretty lofty goal. But were any of you guys involved? Did they solicit any kind of feedback from you how that program should be developed or anything? And are you involved? Are you going to be involved on an ongoing basis?
Thank you very much for the question and for acknowledging the leadership that we're getting in this country right now on these issues. I got to say, I wasn't involved. And there are probably folks in this room that were. One person that was involved was HUD Secretary Marcia Fudge. I don't think there can be any question about how much support she has for this work. I can tell you that that same level of support exists within our county council and our peer council at City of Cleveland. And at the end of the day, what I think one of the things that we're really focused on right now, our Office of Homeless Services has, for the first time, at least in recent memory, received a HUD grant to address youth homelessness. And actually, a lot of the folks that are leading that work are sitting to my right and left. And I think that is the sort of leadership that we need, and it's distributed. I think Biden, for this plan to work, it really needs to hand the reins over to the community. It needs to hand it over to local government whenever possible. We are ready, we are prepared, and I think we are mobilized to respond and to push through where there is the opposition. So I acknowledge his great work. I acknowledge the work of Secretary Fudge. And frankly, I think we're ready to go. But let me open it up to others have as well.
I just went to a couple webinars. They were good.
Hey, folks. My name's Al Gennaro, and I really wasn't supposed to be here. I just heard about this about 40 minutes ago. But I had to come. There's a couple of reasons why. Number one, I was born in Ohio, in Fairview Hospital. But since I was 3 years old, I was raised in Florida. And I'm from Miami. I'm a Miami boy. But what we did in Florida was start youth programs called Rite of Passage. And now I'm in Ohio to bring those programs. So I really don't have any questions. I really just came with some answers to be able to help with some things. Here's the thing. A lot of things that you guys are talking about right now with homelessness and different things like that, we started putting things in place so I know that I can be a resource for you with what we're doing. I was one of the chaplains that was a counselor at Stoneman Douglas after the shooting. And we also have programs that I'm bringing up here called Pearls for Girls to teach girls their self-worth. We got situations for young men as well, and we got a huge camp that's coming. And the thing is the reason why I felt like it was important to say something is the young man was talking about being a black male. That's a great situation, but at the end of the day, it's not about employment no more. We have to get to teaching our kids again about entrepreneurship and how to be able to make your own money and not wait. So thank you. But We're going to be doing that in Ohio. Now, since I didn't know about this, I'm going to find out more information on how we can help you guys, because that's why we're here. But what I want to do is I want to be able to take all the resources and things that we've had there, implement them here in Ohio. I want to do that for the next couple of years, because I got to be honest, I'm only here to help bring those programs here. Then I'm back in Florida. But what I really love about this room, and I want to give you guys flowers, we always tell our children it's not about race, it's about love. And this room represents that. And one of the things a lot of people used to always come to us and talk to us about is all children welcome. All children are welcome, and they are safe, because all children are affected. What we deal with children, homelessness is the biggest trauma trigger we deal with. So it's not even just about resources and housing. It's about depression, anxiety, addiction, suicide. And we might have to make sure that we are able to give these kids the resources needed so they can deal with that situation. One of the stories that I love the most, and you can go to the Disney platform and watch the Marvel Kids stuff, is a young lady by the name of Rebecca, who's a transgender lady. I don't know, you know, see, look at that face, look at that face. So I always show people the story of Rebecca, because when you watch the story of Rebecca, you realize that Rebecca is a young woman. She might have been born in a male body, but she is a young woman. And when we start understanding that these are human journeys and we respect each journey for what it is, then we can give the kids the resources that they need in order for them to have a good life on this earth. It's not about Republican, it's not about Democrat, it's about us. So I'm here for you. I'll get with you after this. I just wanted to introduce everything, not take it over, but I really love what I see.
I'm a little nervous. Yeah, I'm at blank right now. I just wanted to say, like, I grew up from the streets, and I've seen a lot of like homeless and this one. Like, I live paycheck to paycheck, and it took, well, not just the one day, but seeing like the homeless. I have a lot of homeless by me where I live. But I remember sitting on a patio with Carrie and in Ohio City, and this woman walking up, it was pouring rain, she had no shoes on. And I saw Carrie walk out and went out to her like trunk and said, "Hey, I have these socks. Here's a bus pass, like this is where you need to go." And that was inspiration for me, because one, I don't hand out a lot of money, but I will go to the store and buy quickly. Hey, do you need food or whatever you need. I've always been that way growing up. To this day, seeing that moment, I'm like, it was heartwarming. And this program that these guys have, they're hard, standing behind it. Like, you go to Chicago, you go to New York, you see like the homeless, Arizona. Everybody does a lot in every community. I know right down the street, Triscuit, yeah, the rapid station, all the homeless goes by. Homeless people come by, I'm like, he has a very healthy dog. My girlfriend and I give them treats, like, hey, Danny, like, and they're harmless. Whatever they got going on in their life, the way you can give. Right now, I gave gloves that were in my car. They were my gloves. I don't use them, but here you go. It's fucking freezing outside. But they inspired me in their program. And I think it's amazing that they're pushing this in Cleveland, because you see it all over the world in every single city. If you're able to give something, it's gloves, a sandwich, or a coat or whatever. My donations now, and Carrie knows, like, I'll have bags on my front porch, like, or here's a bed. Like, if you have a safe house or whatever, like, anybody can be like, just need somewhere to stay. At least I can donate, and Carrie has taught me a whole new world, which I always had in my heart. But this program that they have is freaking amazing. I'm all for the movement, and I think it's amazing. That's all
I want to thank you, and I want to also acknowledge there's a lot of folks in this room that give. I think one of the most important ways that we can give is to find somebody that's never voted and give them the franchise that they need. Give them the ability to help make the decisions for this community, for this city, this county, this state, this country. I think giving is something that all of us do on a daily basis in one form or another, but I also would acknowledge there are special times, and as a community, we have to lift that up, we have to recognize it, and we should all be committed to it, so thank you.
Hi, I'm Gulnara Farasta, she, they pronouns, and I am the Senior Director of Programs at the LGBT Community Center of Greater Dublin. Want to give props to everybody up here. And I had 2 points. The first one is, what is preventing us from mobilizing additional resources so that we can have more than one carry? Carry is our lifeline at the center around supporting youth that come in that are in crisis. And we need more than one carry. One carry for all of Cuyahoga County is not enough. And when we talk about people that are being overworked, underpaid, working for organizations that are under-resourced chronically, that is really problematic. We've known that this is a problem. And clearly, whatever we've been doing, the staff, what is going to be the new way? I'm not here for that. I want to know what's going to happen that's I love the idea of the drop-in center in Ohio City. My concern is that drop-in center only has limited hours, does not have capacity at the moment to be overnight, which is when most people need a place that's safe and affirming and welcoming to be. So A, what are we going to do to make that happen? And B, I want to know more about all the ways in which we are going to ensure that place is affirming and safe for LGBTQ plus kids, because 25.5% of youth in our public high schools, according to the most recent YRBS survey, identify as LGBTQ plus. That is a quarter of our population at some point in the future if we extrapolate. So those are my 2 questions. Thank you.
I can't produce myself anymore than I already do. I agree, and I think also that I can't really speak to the drop-in, so that's my response.
I'll just yes to all those things, first of all. One kind of push towards the right direction is this funding, the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program funding. Our youth board, including Courtney, have been really trying to figure out, okay, we have $2 million a year. How do we use that? Because our original plan was all the housing and all the navigators and all the carries and $4 million or $2 million a year goes really quickly. Currently, the iteration is to have 6 additional navigators, including 2 specific outreach workers. Everyone who is a part of this work has to be affirming of the LGBTQ community. It is a non-negotiable. You will be monitored by young people with lived experience, most likely young people who are part of the community with lived experience. So it's not enough. It does not meet all the needs, but it's just one step we're taking in the moment to try to move in that direction.
And as far as your question about like what's going to happen to the youth after hours, we do have steps in plan to make sure before we're closing, everybody does have somewhere safe to go. So we are networked with other organizations, so to make sure that doesn't happen, because I know that's a big question that the neighbors and people like you have.
Hi, everyone. I guess I'm the last question of the night. My name is Bree. My pronouns are they, them. And I do a lot in my professional world, but I'm here just as a community resident. I guess it may be a multifaceted question, but one of the things that was just lifted up was like the drop-in center being at Ohio City and different things like that. One of the things that I wanted to raise was the fact that homelessness is rooted on structural racism, right? Ableism and misogynoir, right, which is specific to black women, right? And so you know, we have the drop-in centers at Ohio City. We live in a city that has been systemically redlined to where majority of the most impacted individuals are on the east side. So, you know, I look around this room and a lot of people don't look like me.
Right.
So in terms of, you know, getting to the base of folks and the people who are most directly impacted, what are we doing to stand up these resources like the drop-in center or even like the LGBT center at Greater Cleveland that is not on the east side? What are we doing to bring those, to not necessarily bring those people to us, but to go to those folks, because they're the ones, the Black communities, the Black LGBT community, the Black trans community are the ones that are most impacted by this. And then I guess this is not just a question to, you know, the panel, but also a question to anybody in this room that, you know, who are in the closest proximity to privilege. What are you doing in your everyday work or your everyday lives to dismantle this systemic issue?
So that was a great question. Fun fact, I actually live in Ohio City. Myself, I actually have dropped into the drop-in center, the LGBTQ center a couple times just to see what it was about. And I do go to the office where we work at. A place for me is kind of like located close to Children's Services Building, like downtown. That's kind of like downtown East Side-ish. So I even wonder, like, there too, like, how do people that we're not directly close to, how do they get to us? And we do provide transportation, like RTA passes and stuff like that. If it's a crisis and they can't get to us and their social worker can't get to us, we will try our hardest to come to them. Like, we don't want nobody just saying, like, I try to reach out to this resource and there was no way. Like, there's other resources that we have that will bring you to us. Like, we will dip into emergency funding and stuff like that. As far as the drop-in center goes, yes, we did pick this location, but that's because we feel like we deserve to be here too. Just because I don't see my color in here, we're gonna be in here soon. So just like everybody else is in here, I want our color to be in here too, the LGBTQ that we can represent. We don't really come to the West Side because my biggest thing is I don't see my people, I don't hear my people down there. So why would I go in no land's territory? That's not my territory. We should be able to go anywhere in the world and be comfortable. Why is everybody stuck on the east side or Kinsman or wherever they are, the valley and stuff? Why are we all over there in Collinwood and everything, but we can't be over here where the community is welcoming and actually peaceful, and all the stuff that happens like in our typical neighborhoods are not happening here. It's more like a safe haven kind of over here, but it's like everybody don't get to experience that because we're so stuck in, I'm used to my area, I don't see my people down there, I'm not going down there. So the whole dynamic of the drop-in center being in a different area that it would not be typically in is because we feel like we deserve to be down here just like everybody else.
So thank you once again to our panelists for joining us at the Happy Dog. Tonight's forum was part of the City Club and the Community Series sponsored by the Bank of America. Be sure to join the City Club on Tuesday, May 9th. The City Club will relaunch the City Club Book Club, that's kind of difficult, with award-winning actor and author Patterson Joseph, who will be discussing his new book, The Secret Diaries of Charles Ignatius Sancho. Tickets are still available for this forum, and you can purchase them and learn more about other forums at thecityclub.org. Thank you, members and friends of the City Club, both here and streaming live. I'm Chris Nestrick, and this forum is now adjourned.